Almighty, merciful, gracious, and loving God, as we gather now in this place with important work before us, help us to remember that you call us to righteousness and justice. You call us to peace and wholeness. You call us to compassion, mercy. You call us to service and action. You call us to make this community and this world a better place. Bless now all who gather in this place. Bless the town council meeting that lies before us. Bless those who lead us. Bless our first responders who protect and watch over us. To those who lead, grant patience of cooperation. For discussions encountered here, grant clarity of thought. For decisions made here, grant the courage for truth. Let us be surrounded with your grace as we practice discernment, wisdom, and vision. Keep ever before us the broken places of our lives together, places of despair and disappointment, places of pain and injustice, places of neglect and abuse. Remind us that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. Remind us of our love for you and our love for our neighbor. Help us keep our vision and our purpose towards the common good of all people, a vision that benefits our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. Set our hearts to beat in rhythm with yours, and blend us with all people of goodwill, both in this place and beyond, as this community stands as a beacon of hope, of peace, and of justice. For this we pray in your holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen. Well done. Thank you. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge the allegiance. Flag. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, one. Thank you. We will, agenda item C1, Town of Westlake full year 24-25 budget. We have a work session including compensation plans for the Town of Westlake and Westlake Academy. We will now hold a work session regarding the budget. Casey, how are you? Excellent.
Are we good now? Okay. In the academy budget. And so I'm just going to walk over real quickly, base budget where we're at today, talk you through some of the requests on the town side, compensation, and then a quick bit at the end on property tax and calendar. So overall, year over year, base budget to base budget, meaning none of the asks that we're about to talk to are incorporated. We're actually looking at about a $1.2 million decrease in expenditures. Most of that has to do with the continuing shore up of those expenditures going out the door, and then also the lack of capital items in here. Whenever we're talking about revenues for this upcoming fiscal year, there are two revenue sources I want to make sure that we point out and talk about over the next couple of months. The first one being sales tax. We're looking at a pretty huge increase adopted to proposed year over year. That is just reflective of what we're seeing currently. So we're already 9 months into the fiscal year, and we're at about $10.5 million in sales tax receipts with still a quarter left to go, obviously exceeding our current year budget, planning to shore that up for next year. And the other item on here is going to be our development fees and revenues. Whenever we talked about the budget last year, what we were talking about were some pretty significant one-time sale or permit dollars related to the Deloitte expansion. So that's underway. Those are going away. And then for base revenues, there's just some minor shifting, but really there's nothing higher or lower of note. That's all funds together. The two funds that I do want us to talk about today, specifically because we are looking at doing requests being funded out of these two funds, the first one being general fund. This is going to be our major operating fund. It makes up more than 50% of our total operating budget on the town side. It's where the vast majority of property tax revenue goes. It's where the vast majority of sales tax revenue goes, permit fees, and then this is also where most of our people and operations are funded. And so what we're looking at just as a starting number, is about $2.9, almost $3 million to the good available for the SLAs that we'll talk about and any compensation adjustments.
It's a good start.
Casey, could you go back a couple slides just real quick? I want to take a look at the permit revenue.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how much of that is expected to be Deloitte, you said, for the permitting?
So for the current year, we budgeted around $4.1 million for the Deloitte expansion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and then switching over to the utility fund, we're not planning on doing anything with rates for the upcoming fiscal year and just looking at base budgets adopted year to proposed for next year. We're looking at almost $1 million that are available for any of the SLA asks that we'll talk about. Any questions before I get into the details of the asks? All right. So on the town side, we're looking at almost $1.9 million in what we call service level adjustments. These are going to be the capital items, any changing to staff. And then on the academy side, we're looking at about $60,000. If y'all will recall, during our discussion with the academy budget, we were giving Dr. Ritchie time to get in, have a conversation with her staff, and reevaluate any of those asks that we put on pause. So what we'd like to do today is go ahead and rectify a couple of things, one being the algebra increase, and then adding the travel training dollars that staff had asked for. Whenever it comes to the town requests, we've got 4 specific requests that we want to talk through. The first being the fire engine replacement, and then 3 firefighters being added on. We do have Chief Art here if y'all have specific questions about those. Okay. And then on the public works side, we've got 2 public works employees and a vac trailer, just to help us shore up on that side of things. And then we've got Cheryl and Kyle here if you have any questions on those.
And we're going to hear presentations on these later,
Public
right?
Works.
You will hear more information. Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Okay. All right, and then shifting over to compensation considerations. We had talked over the summer about where we want to be in the market as far as staff compensation on both the town and the academy side. We are looking at doing a almost $250,000 adjustment specifically to get our firefighters in line with where they need to be, and then some ad hoc adjustments for long tenured staff to make sure that if they've been here a while, we're keeping them in the range that they need to be in to be competitive. And whenever we make these adjustments, just so everybody's aware, the adjustments for fire specifically will put them at the median in our 5 touching surrounding cities.
Do you have a slide on that? Just
I
so
have-
that people can see?
Just this high-level thing, but I do have additional information that's included in the packet, and we can push that out again. All right, and then for town raises, just to make sure that we're going forward into next year, not getting too far behind by not doing anything like our surrounding cities, we're proposing a 2% raise across all staff. And then we're also asking that the council approve a similar raise for the academy. It would be 2% for non-counselors or non-teachers that are on a STEP plan. For everybody else on STEP plan, it would be 2% of the mid of their range, plus then they also get their STEP. So it washes out to about 2% overall across the board. Doing that will actually put them at the top of the range within our surrounding cities if you're including our health contribution. If you don't, we're only about $500 below. And that's on annual salary. Any questions on the compensation adjustments?
No,
proposed?
and Mike, I appreciate, I think it was last council meeting talking about kind of total rewards, how we look at that and kind of start to get that in our
Okay, and then what I'm really wanting to get out of today is some generic head nods so that we can start building an updated budget. So if we're good with everything that was just discussed, what that would mean for the general fund is we'd be increasing expenditures about $2.2 million. That would still allow us to put about $700,000 back into fund balance with the current revenue projections. And then for the utility side, That would increase the utility fund expenses by about $300,000, which would have us putting about $600,000 back into the retained earnings of that fund available for future capital projects. I'm seeing head nods. Okay, so we will build those items
Good
into.
story. Thank you.
It's a lovely story.
It's a lovely story.
So we will build those in whenever we come back. You'll see all of those numbers updated with the shakeout of what we just had nodded on. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about, and this is just a fun, weird thing that our state legislature makes y'all do, you will have to vote on a property tax rate before you vote on a property tax rate. So on August 5th, I'll come back and we will have you make an actual vote on a maximum tax rate to be considered, meaning we will put this vote in an advertisement that gets put in the paper. You are not approving the tax rate at that time. What you are telling the public is that you will not consider a property tax any higher than this. So we're proposing that the property tax rate stay flat for the upcoming year. So if we're good with that, then that's what we'll vote on in August.
Correct.
Okay,
And we are good with that.
awesome. Love to hear that.
But Casey, the wording on that when we approve that is really weird, where it looks like we.
Correct.
So for new council members, we want to make sure, and all of our residents understand, it's staying flat.
Yes, it is some very specific language that they put into the state statute that whenever we make certain motions over the next coming months, whoever makes the motion has to read it verbatim. We'll give y'all the script and it will sound wonky, just to warn you.
Casey, before we jump into the calendar, a couple of things. First of all, just to note that the Finance Committee of the Council did get a chance to look at these numbers offline. Not every council member, but the Finance Committee. And then I think I'll take you up on your offer to have a fire chief come up. There's some significant requests. I think they're worthwhile. I think for the sake of the community to hear commentary on the new fire engine and the 3 additional firefighters probably be worthwhile just for the
Yeah, and Mike, let's echo on that. The Finance Committee spent time in detail with all these, talked to some of your colleagues. So, my job is trying to make these meetings efficient and make sure all the council is informed, but it's also to be efficient. And hopefully we're. Chief.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Council. I thought I would address a couple of things for you, and if you have any questions, please ask me. In terms of the replacement for a fire truck, we've got right now a backup or reserve engine that is 21 years old. Depending on which source you use, it's 20 to 25-year lifespan. We know that right now to replace that vehicle is a lead time of 3 to 4 years. So we know that it would be appropriate for us to be preparing for that purchase because we know that the lead time will take us anywhere from 2 to 4 years for that to be replaced. It's an aging vehicle, and we know that a lot of our problems occur with that vehicle, not with so much of its replacement cost for repair, but its out-of-service time and its obsolescence issues with that vehicle. A lot of the parts to replace on that vehicle are not available anymore. And that becomes an increasing challenge for us, and it increases the time in which it's out of service. So that's one of our challenges there with that. And it's we only have 2 fire trucks. So if that one's not working or the front line's got a problem, then we're struggling to find another vehicle from a neighboring agency to help us. Related to 3 firefighters, we know that through I mentioned this in our last presentation, that there's many sources, NFPA 1710, NFPA 1500, OSHA, that state that we know that we'll be more effective and safer with a better staffed fire truck. We know that these 3 people will give us the ability to have 3 people minimum on that fire truck each and every day. The safety will come from having the more situational awareness so that when we're out on a wreck, we've got an extra eyes for making sure that we're safe. But it also means, from an effectiveness standpoint, we're going to handle more critical tasks simultaneously. Those tasks are going to be prioritized for fewer people. And sometimes it means that we have to sacrifice safety or we sacrifice effectiveness in order to do that. So these 3 firefighters are going to be critical for providing a better service to the community. And that's going to come in those terms of safety and effectiveness.
So, Chief, I mean, like, to be honest, these three kind of get us to a right size environment where we're not working so much overtime.
I think it will help us, yes.
And we know our attrition, we talked about size, we know your attrition has been horrendous, and we're trying to get that stopped. So we think these two things will help that.
I think the improving the staffing model will make us a more attractive agency to attract people and retain people. I think with a more stable environment of folks, we won't have attrition. We'll also save money there in terms of a little bit of cost and then also hours. But we are trying to raise the standard from a 4-person minimum to a 5-person minimum. And that's traditional among many of the jurisdictions in our area. When I say jurisdictions, that means the Roanoke's, the South Lakes, the Kellers, the Colleyvilles, all of those are running 3 to 4 people on a fire truck every day. Minimum of 3. If they have 2, it's out of service.
And looking at the materials, it looks like there is no ladder for this truck in this request. Is that true?
There are ground ladders that will be on this,
Okay.
but not an aerial apparatus.
Okay.
So there is a complement of ground ladders that will be on there, a 24-foot, a 12-foot, 16-foot, 6-foot, but
Okay.
not aerial equipped. That's
Good
a
to know.
completely separate piece of equipment that has a larger complement of tools and ladders to support larger structures, which we still support, but in pursuit of this right now.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it.
All right, then we'll get to the calendar just to give y'all kind of a rundown of the gauntlet to get us adopted on the town side. So whenever y'all see us at the next meeting on August 5th, we will have had certified values turned into us from the appraisal districts, and we will have calculated our actual tax rate on our 6-page form that legislature enforces. We will also have that vote to say this is what the maximum tax rate is going to be, so whenever we do our notice publications, we can include that. The meeting after that, on the 19th, y'all will already have a copy of the proposed budget. The proposed budget has to be made available to the public for 30 days before the body can vote on it. And so whenever we get going into September, it'll be a little quiet compared to this next month of August, but the adoption is currently scheduled for the 9/16 meeting. All right, any other questions?
That's the easiest budget discussion you've ever
I very much enjoyed it, and I hope you did too.
Well done. I do want to say for our council, as far as our residents, you've been here how long? Year, 15 months?
About that.
About 15 months. Wade's been here a little over a year. We've worked really hard with council members and the finance committee to get our arms around and really understand our finances. I think we're starting to see the benefit of all that hard work with what you talked about today. We're kind of lasering in on this. I thank you so much. Wade, you as well, but just like kind of where we are today and with this council.
Yeah, and just to chime in on that,
It's
this budget has been much more clear on our key cost drivers than we've had before, and I think the collaboration with council in the past has helped with that. You've also done massive training for our finance team, with our accounting practices and our financial checks and balances.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey. The work session is now over. We'll move on to our regular meeting. Agenda item E, citizen parent comments. Do we have anybody who wants to speak today? Al Krieger. Herr Hoff. How are you? As well.
Serving our town. Okay, I just want to make a statement. I'm Gail Krieger. I live at 2003 Court in Westlake, and I want to voice my opposition to the cell phone tower for risk of radiation and crazy height.
Thank you. Any others? Gail, thank you. Next item, items of community interest. Mr. Sasser.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Good afternoon, everybody. A few things here that we want to go over. Our next town council meeting is going to be on Monday, August 5th at 4 o'clock. Our next planning and zoning meeting will be Tuesday, August 13th at 5 o'clock. Westlake Academy first day of school will be Thursday, August 15th. We'll have several orientations and back-to-school nights earlier that week, so if you'd like more information about those, please check the Westlake Academy website. It's right there on the front page on the calendar where you can get more information on that. We're very excited to host once again for the 4th year in a row the Military Heroes Run on Saturday, August 17th at 7 a.m. That's a 5K, 10K, which raises money for our wounded veterans. In their first 12 years, they've raised more than $2 million. This is the 4th year it's been in Westlake, and it's a tremendous honor because they can choose anywhere in North Texas to host this event, and they choose us. So we're very excited about that. That's going to start right across the street over at Solana Plaza, again at 7 a.m. The mayor is going to be there a few minutes before and give remarks to kick it off. But this is a great organization, and if anybody in the council chambers here or watching at home would like to participate, we'll put links up on our website as well as our social media on how you can sign up or just participate and be out there. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and it gets us an opportunity to show off our trails and our beautiful landscape as well. So it's going to be very exciting. Again, 7 a.m. August 17th. And then our next...
And John, if I can just
Yes.
say, I've been to every one of those events, and they are fantastically run. And the fire department shows up, and the organizers are very helpful with water all along the trail. So please come out.
It's great, and the organization raves about our trail system as well, which is great. Which is a lot of it's awesome. It's a benefit from everybody, so it gets to showcase us as well. So we're very excited about that. And then the next town council meeting after that is Monday, August 19th. Some additional items I'd like to talk about is something we had back on July 3rd was our American flag placement. This was spearheaded by the mayor and the mayor of Trophy Club as well, where we kind of carry on their tradition from Trophy Club across Davis Boulevard, where 1,000 American flags were posted along Davis Boulevard. We had about 15 to 20 volunteers.
20 volunteers,
Yeah, at about 6:40 in the morning, all show up. It's a lot of people were on summer vacation and that kind of thing, but still, we had a great turnout. Everybody did a phenomenal job. It was well organized, and I can imagine how it's only going to grow moving forward. And if you're interested, check out our video that we posted. But we really appreciate everybody's involvement in that, and I'm sure it's going to grow even more in 2025. So,
John, let me comment on that. One, I do want to thank all the volunteers. So, Mayor Jeanette Tiffany at Trophy Club, she was on me. Trophy Club put up 40,000 flags this year throughout their neighborhoods. You drive through there, it's something. My goals, we did 1,000 flags down Davis. We kind of figured it out. We figured out the ground is really hard on some of these areas. We have drills. But we're going to challenge our corporate partners, and we'll challenge our neighborhoods to expand this every year, but it did look just wonderful. And I think it really, the feedback I've gotten from the community is wonderful. So it will be bigger and better every year.
indeed, and that's one of those community events that really makes Westlake unique and special. And as we do more of those, I think you're going to see a lot more engagement moving forward. So it was great. I don't know if anybody noticed, but we did a soft launch of our brand new website on July 1st. This was the first time in 5 years we had done any kind of real update, just a complete overhaul. It looks awesome. We partner with Civic Plus to host our website. They did a fantastic job of working with us and staff and all of you guys as well to give helpful hints and tips. And again, it's one of those things we want to make it as user friendly as possible. I mean, we can have all the bells and whistles and it can look great, but if it doesn't provide the information that everybody needs, then it's really useless. So it was great to have kind of feedback to get there, to kind of get the design intact. So we're really excited about that as well.
Great job.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of other items here we want to talk about. We've really gotten the word out about late fees on the water bills. That's a big deal. As we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, we've done a full media campaign, if you will, where we put it on social media, our website, text alerts, emails, Stroll Magazine.
Stroll Magazine.
Yeah. And then we're putting out postcards for those who like to have it in their hand. So that's going to be a really large initiative moving forward. And those late fees started on July 1st, right? I believe. So that's going to be a big initiative moving forward. And then finally, we really wanted to talk about a real point of emphasis from everybody at the town, and that's the driving of golf carts and motorized vehicles on our trails. Unfortunately, we see an increase. We know it's coming every summer. So around May, the first week of May, we do a complete blitz of, hey, just a reminder, we know it's going to increase with all the kids being out of school, but please keep all ATVs, UTVs, golf carts and such off the trails. It becomes more and more dangerous. In fact, just today, just going to lunch and coming back, I saw 2 golf carts driven by. I would assume that they are not licensed teenagers. They look pretty young. But we've gotten a lot of resident feedback about close calls about on the trails, especially as the weather starts to cool down at night. A lot more people are on the trails. It's darker, and that could lead to some real troubles. So we want to urge again. We've sent it out multiple times on all of our channels to make sure that everybody knows the rules. And as a matter of fact, we'd like to call up Lieutenant Craig Berry from our Keller Police Department, who could talk more about the enforcement moving forward.
Good afternoon. Just to reiterate, it is illegal to operate a golf cart on a sidewalk or a hiking or biking trail. That's not unique to Westlake. It is Texas state law. So our philosophy moving forward, since we're continuing to get complaints from residents, will be to take a more proactive enforcement approach to this and prioritize that, and it'll be in the interest of keeping our pedestrians safe out there on the trails. So we'll be out there watching for this, and we'll take appropriate enforcement action when it occurs. So much rather people voluntarily comply, and then we don't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And just for full disclosure, while we were putting the flags up, I used our golf cart and I got in trouble. So I won't do that again. And we're actually offered a side by side to use. But yeah, I got called out the other day for doing that. I kind of knew it was wrong, but we were getting flags up. But I won't do it again.
Well, that proves everyone's being treated equally and fairly. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And those are your items of community interest.
Thanks, John. Okay, agenda item G, presentations. Receive a Metroport Chamber of Commerce annual update presentation. Sally Aldrich, how are you? Glad you're here.
Lots of new faces. I am happy to be here for our annual update. I know there are, if you've looked at the packet, there's a lot, but I'm going to run through it really quick. I promise. So I like to come this time of year to give you an update on our year, which we're a calendar year, so it would have been 2023, and kind of give you where we are as of halfway through the year or past. So we are your business community. We've been connecting the Alliance region. We have not made any changes to our mission, vision, or values. Our region with our 6 communities, we have a lot of businesses as well. Our makeup of our businesses is from Fortune 500, 500, all the way down to nonprofit. So we have a lot of different businesses to serve. And this is what we focus on with our communities, which is networking, promotion, education, and advocacy. And as far as networking, these are all the things that we do for networking purposes. Our education, our promotion, our advocacy, and then on top of that, we work with all of our communities on our ED initiatives. We meet once a month as all the 6 communities. We talk about the things that we're working on collectively and separately, and then all the different parts and pieces we do, and all of this is also in your. And then, of course, we have a building. We built this building for the members to use, chamber to be officed, as well as offering leasable offices on the upper level in hopes that people will come, hang a shingle, start a business, but stay in the area and grow their business. And then these are all the amenities we offer for. And if you're a member, the common area is part of your membership. So for 2023, we really held, we weren't stagnant, we grew just slightly. But the industry is that way right now with the economy. We are starting to see an increase, but industry-wide, this is where we are with the economy now. But we did grow in membership, new growth, but it's the first and second years challenged. Our partners in 2023, we couldn't do all that we do without our high-level investors, all of our President's Circle, and of course our communities. And then these are all of the events that we held in 2023 as well as the networking opportunities. And of course, our Regional Advantage Leadership class, which we host from September through to May. Our event partners are bronze to the town. Silvers, our golds, and our platinums. And just a quick 2024 recap where we are right now. We're holding at 531 members as of June 30th, which is 9% growth. And we held 2 membership luncheons. Of course, our first one was State of the Community Address. The second one that we held was the FW Giving. Our Alliance Development Forum is held in March, and we partner with our 6 communities to bring all the different things that are coming to the region. This year we focused on residential growth. Our Taste event is our capital campaign event. All proceeds go towards the campaign to pay off our wonderful building. We held 2 women in business luncheons, 2 emerging leaders, which focuses on personal growth. Our BET program, which is business education training, it focuses on your business. And we focus on topics really geared for small business. We held 2 Metroport mixers, and we take these to all the businesses in the area. Our business builders, we've held 6. We moved that through our 6 communities. And our August one actually is going to be at Fidelity.
Oh, excellent.
And then we graduated our Class 7 for our Regional Advantage. Then we will be kicking off our Class 8 this fall. We actually have a full class again. And then these are all the ways in which we communicate with our members and the public at large. Then in your packet, you also have a copy of this Connect card. It's a great way for you to always stay on top of what's happening with the Chamber, as well as the directory of members. How to contact us is on the other side of it. And then coming up, these are all the items coming up for the rest of the year, for July, August, September, October, and November. And then we'll end the year in December with our Support Business Award. Recognize all of our communities and all of our TARP partners. Out. And there's just a quick picture of a few things that we've been doing in the town of Westlake. I promised it was good. But any questions?
That's a personal record.
Pardon?
Thank you.
I know. Well, I knew you all have this, so I don't go through it in great detail, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Look, I know you've known Wade a long time, and I've told Wade, I think a year ago, I will not miss another meeting. But I really encourage the council, if you're available, to make they're wonderful networking opportunities. Actually, how we talked about the Mayor Trophy Club, how I met her, the Mayor of Dustin, the Mayor of North Lake, the superintendent of North Lake who I've met. So all of these connections, you guys just do a wonderful job.
Thank you.
We're happy to participate.
Wonderful.
Continue to participate.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Mayor. And the next luncheon, by the way, in August 14th is going to be ERCOT, giving an update on the electric grid. So I thought August would be a good one to do that. So I encourage you to come. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
And the Speedway Club.
Yep, Speedway Club. Yep. So
And
thank you.
I would also add that for any business owners here in Westlake, I would encourage you to attend as well. When we opened a business here in 2010, it was very helpful.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you. Okay, going on, item G2, School of Choice presentation. Janet?
Afternoon. So I am here this afternoon. The council had requested just kind of an overview of some of the recent discussion and recent legislation that has been introduced by our state legislature related to school choice legislation. I feel like to start off, I need to remind you that as an open enrollment charter school, Westlake Academy is actually already part of a school choice program, although when the state decided to adopt a charter school program, they chose to make it part of the public school system of the state. And so more recently, we have been seeing discussion and proposed legislation that would expand the opportunity to use state funding for educational opportunities that would include private schools and other private types of private vendors. And so in order to put you all in the best position to understand as we're moving into another legislative session, and we know that school choice is still a priority of the governor, that we certainly expect to see more opportunities for the legislature to be considering school choice legislation. So today what I want to do is just kind of give you an overview. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly in the interest of time, but if there are any areas you want to delve into a little deeper, we certainly can do that. There we go. Just as a reminder, and I think anyone who has read any news during any of the last few legislative sessions is probably aware, but some of the stated purposes or goals of the school choice legislation that has been introduced is to provide parents with more flexibility and more options when it comes to determining kind of the focus and scope of the educational programs that their children will receive. As well as increased opportunities for improved virtual and remote learning opportunities. This really came out of the pandemic. What we saw were that there were actually some students who actually thrived in the remote setting. After we came back to school, those opportunities for public schools to provide virtual options were removed, and so there have been some proponents of using voucher programs or school choice programs to develop or to increase those opportunities for virtual and remote learning through a private school network. And also, you will hear proponents talk about the opportunities to re-increase or re-engage students that we may have lost following the pandemic. There was absolutely a statewide and nationwide decline in enrollment in school generally, and in particularly in public schools following the pandemic. Looking at the types of legislation, so when you hear people talk about school choice or when you hear people talk about vouchers, those can actually look very different depending upon the specific type of legislation that's been introduced. And so wanted to give you just a really quick overview because you will hear a lot of different terms and they operate in different ways, and they can have, especially for Westlake Academy's purposes, and we are going to get there. We're going to talk about the potential impact on Westlake Academy. The type of legislation that is adopted would certainly have a potential impact on the effect for Westlake Academy. A traditional voucher, when you hear vouchers, traditional voucher, we're talking about an opportunity through some type of grant program for a parent to redirect funds that would have gone to the local residential school district for that child, redirect those funds to another educational provider, whether that's another public entity such as an open enrollment charter school, or potentially could include a private school as well. And so that's just a redirection of funds from directly from the state to the educational provider. When we talk about education savings accounts, that is a little bit different because when you're talking about a program that incorporates educational savings accounts, you're talking about setting up a personalized account for each student or for each family that qualifies. And those would, in the most recent legislation introduced in Texas, that would come through the Comptroller's office rather than through TEA. So the Comptroller's office would be tasked with, if similar legislation was to be adopted, would be tasked with setting up this program and setting up these individual accounts. Each account would be capped at a certain amount set by the legislature. But then within that amount, parents would have the opportunity to direct it however they want it. So you wouldn't necessarily have to put all of the money towards one item. You could use it for some for school tuition, some for private therapies, some for private tutoring. There would be a lot of different options in terms of how that money got directed. When we're talking about tax credit scholarships, that's the most unique in terms of the options that have been considered. There we're talking about tax credits for businesses or individuals who donate money to scholarship opportunities for students to attend private schools. And so that's offset with a tax credit to those individuals. Obviously, although that doesn't involve a direct redirection of public funds from one account to another at the state level, it does impact the amount of tax dollars coming in that can be attributed to educational funding. And then virtual vouchers, that's what I mentioned before. Virtual voucher programs look at developing and redirecting some of our public education funds for the purpose of developing a virtual school options and networks that would be managed by private providers. And then we have special population or bracketed vouchers. These are very common and very often the first types of voucher programs that are introduced in states that are just getting involved with voucher or school choice programs. In these scenarios, the opportunity to access the school choice program, to access the educational savings account, is limited to either students who have certain criteria or meet certain criteria, such as students with disabilities, or it is limited based on socioeconomic status of the family, or it can even potentially exclude certain students. So it could be available to all students within the state, except it could carve out students in rural areas, which have traditionally been opposed to voucher programs and are often hit the hardest by voucher programs when they're introduced in a state. So it is possible to adopt a voucher program or ESA program that would not be eligible and available to all students within the state, but would be targeted based on certain student populations. As we move into the new legislative session, I encourage you to pay attention to there are certain elements that can change from one program to the other or from one bill to another as things get adopted or as things get introduced. First is that student participation criteria. If a program is adopted that is limited to only certain types of student populations or families that meet certain criteria, that is certainly going to impact how much of an effect it has on Westlake Academy. Currently, the percentage of students that you have enrolled at Westlake Academy that would qualify as economically disadvantaged is extremely, extremely low. And so if the state were to adopt a voucher program or school choice program that was limited to those families, then the impact on Westlake Academy is going to be extremely, it's going to be non-existent, basically. Same thing if they're targeting certain student populations, that's certainly going to impact the effect that it could have on Westlake Academy. Another element of each piece of legislation is going to be the education providers eligible to receive funding. Typically, this is going to include public schools and private schools because the whole purpose is to expand the opportunities to include private schools. But where we see diversity between the bills is whether or not it is also going to include homeschool students, homeschool families, whether or not the private schools that are eligible to receive funding under the program, whether or not they have to be accredited. And so those are the types of criteria that could impact how much of an effect it would have on something like Westlake Academy or an open enrollment charter school. The amount of funding distributed through the program is also going to have an impact. Again, it's very common as states are kind of dipping their toe into school choice programs is to limit the number of students who can actually be a part of the school choice program, either based on number of students or based on the amount of money to be distributed. And we're going to see that in the example of the most recent Texas bill. The assessment of student outcomes, whether or not the bill is going to, or the adopted legislation would require every educational provider that is receiving funding to still participate in some type of student assessment or not, and that's something that varies from one bill to the next. And then finally, the method of distributing funds, whether it's going to be more of that traditional voucher program where it goes directly from the state to the school, or whether it's going to be a savings account program where the parent may have a little more flexibility in distributing those funds. So just by way of example of these different elements, I just wanted to kind of show you where the Texas legislature ended up. This is a very brief summary of how those different elements played out in Senate Bill 1, which was introduced to the Texas legislature through the Senate in 2023 in the October special session. So this was one of the last ones to be introduced, and you'll see some changes. If you were following it, during the last legislative session, it's not easy to say, during the last legislative session, then you saw some movement in some of the areas related to the different criteria. In terms of student participation criteria, it was very broad. It was not limited to certain student populations or certain student economic levels. However, they did incorporate that in terms of how many students could receive it within certain categories, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But generally, everyone would have been available to apply. In terms of the providers that could be eligible to receive funding, it was limited to public and private schools, as well as private tutors and private therapists. And that's really gearing towards those students either with some kind of educational disability, learning disability, or some other kind of special education need where maybe related therapies the parents consider the related therapies to be a significant part of the program that they want to be able to use the state funding for. However, it did not, the Senate Bill 1 that was introduced in October of 2023 did not include homeschool students. So homeschool families would not have been eligible to receive any funding through this program if it had passed. In terms of the amount of funding distributed, it was limited to $8,000 per student. There would have been a cap on the number of students, and the way that this bill would have addressed the different student populations is it would have been limited by lottery based on the total number of ESAs that would have been available. 40% of them would have gone to students who were educationally disadvantaged. 30% would have gone to households with low total annual income. 20% would have been reserved for students with disabilities, and then the remaining would have been available to any students that had previously been enrolled in a public or private school within the state or were entering kindergarten. The most recent provisions did include a required annual assessment, whether it was public or private school receiving the funding. And the method for distributing the funds would have been through, again, it was through the Comptroller's Office. The Comptroller's Office would have been responsible for identifying and developing 5 educational assistance organizations, and those organizations would have actually managed the ESAs. Quick review of what we have seen when these programs have been introduced in other states. Initially, what we've seen from reporting from other states, and there are 31 other states have adopted some version of a school choice program, whether it's an ESA, traditional vouchers, or tax credit program. We do see examples of that in 31 of the 50 states. Initially, when these have been introduced, unless they were limited in terms of the student populations that were eligible to receive funding, 75 to 89% of the students taking advantage of the vouchers were already attending private school. And so initially that suggests that, well, you wouldn't think there was much of an impact then if they were already in private school, and so now they're just staying in private school. But that meant that those students were not previously receiving public funding, and now they were entitled to receive public funding. So what we saw across the board was an increase in the overall state funding requirements. The outcome of that is either the state has to increase the total amount that is provided for education, or the amount stays the same and the per student amount is reduced. And of course, in that scenario, that's where we're going to see the biggest impact for folks like Westlake Academy, is if the incorporation of a school choice program ultimately ends up reducing the per student money that you're receiving from the state.
Is that a possibility?
It's always a possibility.
Is it likely?
That's going to really depend on which of the programs, which version of the programs they end up actually adopting. It does tend, in other states, we did see outcomes where it tends to reduce the total income received by a public school, which, to the mayor's point, without proportionate reduction in costs. And again, even though we're talking about per student funding, so many of the costs, as you guys have just gone through the budgeting process, you know that so many of the costs are fixed, regardless of the number of students that you have in the classroom. And so that can certainly have a negative impact. And then school choice programs typically do expand over time. What we've seen in those states that have initially introduced restricted programs, then over time we saw those growing to include more and more students. Currently, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 states that are either currently have adopted or in the process of adopting universal voucher programs, which would make those public monies available to all students to use for public or private purposes. And Arizona was the first one to do it, and since Arizona, West Virginia, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Iowa, Oklahoma, and Utah have either adopted a universal program or in the process of doing that.
But Janet, just to simplify, the money's following the student.
Yes.
That's what.
Which again is similar to what we see with open enrollment charter schools, because the money that you're receiving per student is money that is following that student from their home school district. But now there are more options even for that money to be directed to a private school.
Anna, do you, with that, if that were to take place, would the amount of funds, because obviously my understanding is that Westlake receives a lower amount of funding per student than a traditional public school does because we're a charter. Do you think that amount would change and it would become equal to a regular public school?
You mean would they
change the amount of funding per student?
And that would just be a function of the legislation that's adopted. But that would certainly be something to watch and advocate for in terms of Westlake Academy is don't lower everybody proportionately. If you need to make up the difference. Then.
I mean, especially I would consider if the students receiving vouchers are getting a higher amount when they're moving, I would think that it would make sense that. And we don't know, right?
We don't know, but I can tell you that the way it's been introduced, for example, the Senate bill that we were just looking at, the voucher would have the value of the educational savings account would have only been $8,000. That's less than what any open enrollment charter school or any ISD is receiving already. So the amount that you would get through the ESA program would actually be less than what your home school would receive if you were going to your home school district or to Westlake Academy, to an open enrollment charter school. In terms of academic outcomes, research that has been done to date suggests that there are no significant improvements in math or reading scores for students that are participating in voucher programs. There's no positive impact on college enrollment or completion rates for students from low-income families. The most recent studies have been from Louisiana, Wisconsin, and Indiana, so that's where that information's coming from. There are, in full transparency, there are some reports out there that are a little bit older that suggested a slight increase in some of the reading scores, but there hasn't ever been anything that has shown a significant increase.
Yeah, I know this is. What is the overall goal of this? What is the fundamental thing they're trying?
Well, you could get a bunch of different answers depending upon who you're asking.
Clearly not math or reading.
Most common is really to be able to direct the curriculum and the scope of information that is shared with their child in the school setting. To be able to, rather than being subject to a full curriculum based on state standards, that private schools have the opportunity to limit, and whether that's incorporating a religious element to it, whether that's whether that's adding to or removing from what the state currently teaches.
Now, this is obvious. It seems like to me all of this talk should be to benefit students. Reading, math, college acceptance. Not really.
We're not seeing that so far. Correct. In terms of potential impacts to Westlake Academy, again, so much of that is going to depend upon the elements of a school choice program that actually gets adopted and whether it is limited to certain student populations or certain socioeconomic criteria. In that case, I would expect to see less of an impact to Westlake Academy. There is the potential, based on that information, that at least initially, that the vast majority of students who end up taking advantage of voucher programs are students that are already in private schools, then that would suggest that there would not be a significant impact initially to Westlake Academy. We do have the potential, though, if students, a family who either is who is not currently have their child in private school, but certainly has the economic means to do that, this could be an additional incentive if they can now apply the money that would go towards Westlake Academy to their private school of choice. So there is the potential to lose current students who opt to apply their state funding to a private school. There's also the potential, and here's where Westlake Academy really is in a different position than an ISD, because when 100 students decide to leave the ISD, there's no mechanism for that ISD to bring 100 new students in, or require 100 new students to move into their geographical
there's no wait
boundaries.
list.
Right. Whereas you guys kind of have a built-in mechanism for refilling spots that are vacated. And so currently the size of your waiting list following the lottery suggests that if there was an impact with students choosing to leave Westlake Academy because of a voucher or ESA program, that you would be able to fill those spots with students from the lottery. Now, there's also those lottery students, though, will also be having the opportunity to take advantage of a school choice program if it were to pass. And so I would expect that you would see some change in the size of your waiting list and some change in the number of applicants that you would receive in the first place. And then just to end us on a good note, I also think there's an opportunity for Westlake Academy, with all the talk about school choice, to not forget that you are a school of choice and you are a program of choice and you do offer something different already. And so maybe using it as an opportunity to capitalize on all that discussion of school choice and just remind folks that Westlake Academy is also a choice for no extra money.
And yeah, in your opinion, given all the legislation and the potential for old legislation to come back through and whatnot, you see any potential where Westlake Academy would no longer be able to define its own boundaries?
Define its own boundaries? No, because
charter.
None of the legislation that I have seen and nothing that I have heard of would impact anything about the structure of the charter school program. It's a completely separate statute within the education code. And so all of those state law provisions related to defining boundaries and the opportunity to change your boundaries and have a primary versus a secondary boundary, that's all part of the charter school program in Chapter 12 of the education code. This would all be, the voucher program or ESA program would be in Chapter 29 currently is where they've been putting it. So no, I haven't seen anything that would impact that. Which means that you would still have the opportunity, if you started to see some changes, you would have the opportunity to either expand or reduce your geographical boundaries to accommodate.
What happens in the school has a limit due to capacity, or like a charter school where there's a max number of students? If a whole bunch of new students want to come there, there are limits still imposed by the charter school?
For the charter school, yes, because those caps on enrollment for a charter school is part of your original charter, and you're subject to that unless an amendment is approved by TEA.
So it wouldn't affect us. I mean, good question.
We would be capped.
We still allow. It sounds like if things could go where our very long wait list could get longer potentially.
Could potentially get longer, could potentially get shorter.
Because our secondary boundary could expand. Is that right? And then just we're still working on our elevator speech, kind of for the school and town. Just for the council and our residents, the school is made up basically of the school today, 850-ish. 40% of those people are from Westlake proper. 60% are lottery children. That's a function of capacity. Through surveys and some other work we've done, we're going to validate out of this. 75 to 80% of school children in Westlake choose Westlake Academy to go to school. We have great results with the school, we know that, but there's a lot of urban legend about what's made up and who goes where and all that, and we'll clean this up with Dr. Ritchie being here, but I know those numbers are directionally correct, so make sure we all kind of understand that. And then last question.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a big impact. One of the things as I get a little smarter in this job every day, should we be talking to Austin, our legislatures, on this? Nobody's reached out asking our opinion. I know we're a little school, but we're a really good school. And
you are.
We're highly thought of. And our legislature, although they don't always show it, they're very high on charter schools. my understanding. Should we be reaching out and having discussions, or?
I would say you want to keep an eye on it, just because, again, in terms of losing students, it doesn't seem like you all have a high risk in that area because you've got that waiting list to fill spots. If it starts to impact the per student funding that is going to be directed to Westlake Academy, then regardless of how many students you have, if your per student funding is being reduced, that becomes an issue. That has not, the Senate bill that we just saw, that would not have been part of it because this funding would have been separate, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on over time.
Please help us do that, and we do need to talk, and the legislators let us know.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I was just going to mention that pursuant to this, if this passes and if there is money allocated for students to go to private schools, there is a new IB. They've just recently been authorized. They're 10 minutes from here. They're pre-K through 12 IB Clarendon School, and it's a small program right now. Not a big impact, but anytime something like that opens in the area, especially if there is funding that will be funneled to that is something we for sure should have on our radar.
Is that the one located in Southlake?
Yes. Yes. And so any of those schools, particularly if they're offering the exact same program that we're supposed to be specializing in, that could pose some issues. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't know that. Right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, moving on. Agenda item G3, Public Works Department update. Cheryl Taylor.
Mayor and council member, before Cheryl gets started, I just wanted to introduce her because most of you had an opportunity to meet her, but the public has not. This is Cheryl Taylor. She's our Director of Public Works. She came to us from Bedford. She was also the Public Works Director in Kennedale prior to that, and City Engineer in Colleyville and Southlake. So she comes to us, kind of fits our mold of fewer, more qualified individuals, right? So we're trying to work on that, Mayor.
How long have you been with us?
This is my 4th week.
And they put you right up here, right?
Yes.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
I like your suit color.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Again, my name is Cheryl Taylor. This evening I'm going to present a high-level overview of the status of Public Works, starting with who we are and what we do, some project achievements over the past year, and a list of initiatives that we plan to bring to the town with the help of additional staff, tools, and equipment in the coming fiscal year. This year's American Public Works Association theme for National Public Works Week is Advancing Quality of Life for All. As public works professionals, that is what we do. In 2003, President George W. Bush issued a presidential policy directive officially recognizing public works as first responders. While police, fire, and EMS are the 3 most recognized first responders, Public Works is also often silently there, providing vital support to emergency response partners, helping protect essential services, and restoring those services following an emergency. Currently, the Public Works Department for the town of Westlake is comprised of a director, a deputy director, 1 field operations coordinator, and 1 crew leader for a total of 4 full-time employees. The field operations coordinator is longest tenured with the department with 10 years, and the others of us are all new to the town with under 1 year. Town manager has assembled a team of professionals with a combined experience of over 86 years in the field of public works. Our focus is to use our knowledge and experience to bring best practices and programs to Westlake to maintain, restore, or improve the existing infrastructure and begin proactive master planning for a community that has the potential for rapid growth in the coming years. We're also here to ensure that the town is prepared to serve the future development that we know is coming. In 2002, the citizen survey for the town of Westlake, residents expressed high satisfaction with the maintenance of town streets at 88% and quality of utility services at 76%. The chart on the right shows that the quality of maintenance of streets exceeded expectations and that they were satisfied with the quality of utility services at that time. There are generally 3 to 4 divisions in a typical public works department. Starting with water, Public Works is responsible for providing safe drinking water, fire protection for emergency services, and water for irrigation to maintain lawns, landscaping, playing fields, and parks. The tasks associated with this responsibility includes operation, maintenance, and repair of the different components of the water system, such as meters, hydrants, valves, storage tanks, and pump stations. Wastewater, similar to the water system, wastewater system components also require constant maintenance. Street and drainage includes maintenance of public streets, traffic signals, street lights, and the public storm drain system. Public Works also sets up barricades and traffic control for town events, prepares for hazardous weather, and clears storm debris such as trees in the right-of-way and public parks. You'll notice on those lists, Texas 811 locates is listed under 3 columns. When contractors or companies request locates, Public Works flags or marks the approximate location of public water, wastewater, and storm drain lines. Oftentimes, you'll see the blue, green, yellow paint lines or flags along the right-of-way. These are markings for the general location of known existing utilities so that anyone working in the area will take greater precautions when digging. This is a priority for safeguarding the town's infrastructure. Parks, in addition to the typical Public Works divisions, existing staff has also taken on duties of a typical Parks department, such as park inspections, repair of bridges, and trash pickup from public streets and along the medians on. The town of Westlake is responsible for complying with local, state, and federal requirements. Non-compliance could bring hefty fines and tightened restrictions or requirements on the town. As a water customer of the city of Fort Worth, the town is held to the same watering schedules as Fort Worth. We're also a customer city of the Trinity River Authority for collection and treatment of wastewater. TCEQ requires submittal of an annual water quality report. And then there's the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. The EPA has selected the town of Westlake to participate in the Get the Lead Out, or GLOW initiative. The town has already taken advantage of the opportunity to contract with an EPA consultant. They are going to prepare and submit the mandatory service line inventory that is required mid-October of this year at no cost to the town. Public Works is currently housed at the former fire station on Dove Road. These are photos of the maintenance building after a storm event. Photos on the left are the interior office areas that were flooded with stormwater that entered the building. Photos on the right are the garage and storage bay area where vehicles and equipment are parked and tools and materials are stored. Drainage improvements around the building and weatherproofing of the building itself would alleviate these issues. A new roof will also prevent further leaks into the structure. The building appears
When did we have this leak? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Just okay.
so just the beginning of the summer. The
Was
building
it flooding,
appears.
was it flooding, or was it through leaks in the roofs? And both.
The building appears to have been neglected over the years and needs immediate maintenance and improvements. We anticipate bringing a contract for weatherproofing and a new roof to you at a future council meeting. Water meters. A reliable water system is a priority for Public Works as we strive to provide safe drinking water and fire protection. The photos on the top left are residential and commercial meters. Public Works is responsible for installing these meters, and the purpose of them they are tools to measure water consumption for billing customers each month. There are currently over 1,100 meters in the ground and on the town's billing system that are read monthly. The badge and beacon tool that is shown in the top middle of this slide, it tracks usage and allows staff to identify and track down meters that are not reporting or working properly so that staff can efficiently make repairs and rectify the issue. There's a story that goes behind the remainder of those photos. The first screenshot is from Beacon showing water usage from a specific meter. The second screenshot is from the water billing software. Long story short, the irrigation meter at a commercial campus had been inoperable since about 2006. Public Works staff replaced the non-reading meter in the past year, and the new meter reads indicate over 110,000 gallons of flow daily. So this is a prime example of why it's important for the town to implement a meter program that includes large meter testing and residential and commercial meter replacement. With the meter program,
Can we hold on just a second? So, wait, I know this is appropriate time. We've had a couple issues that we don't have some contemporary tools, contemporary tracking. One of the things we had water going that we weren't charging. I think we had another leak. We have these tools in place now that can monitor the tool is
Yes, sir. We have that. The beacon tool is now in place, and we also have our SCADA system is in the middle of implementation. So we have some tools that are coming that will assist us in those. But having the personnel to be able to go out and actually put their eyeballs on these meters and actually make repairs is the next step that we're going to require in order to ensure that these kind of things don't happen again in the future.
And then wait, and I know, Council, we've talked about this, but when we had the water issue, everything's running together. It was a few weeks ago, and we had everybody kind of a potential boil issue. That's a whole different level of issues in Westlake. And, you know, what we talked about is we want to make sure that all of council understands our points of town for our basic services. So I think we're in the works of getting to that, and we'll discuss it I want our residents to know too. But I guess what I'm saying to council, I'm of the opinion we have not been as diligent as we should have in preventive maintenance and investment of our infrastructure. We're probably going to have to avoid some of these issues. Very glad you're on board.
Yeah, I mean, I would second that. I think across the town we have several neighborhoods and probably commercial buildings with very old meters like this. And we do need people to go out there. We don't have that yet.
Sorry to interrupt.
Right. So the loss in revenue from one damaged meter justifies the need for this type of a program. An audit of the existing meters could also prove to be beneficial in recouping lost revenue to the town. Water leaks. Public Works repairs various water mains and services throughout the town as needed. Currently, staff digs out the location with shovels to determine the location of those needed repairs. Public Works would benefit greatly from a vacuum trailer to safely and more efficiently repair these types of emergency leaks for our customers. As a customer of the City of Fort Worth, the town is required to assess and collect Fort Worth impact fees from its customers for each new meter installed based on the size of the meter. Impact fees are paid for the impacts to their system and future improvements that will be required to operate Fort Worth's water system. The town of Westlake does not currently assess and collect impact fees from developers for connections to the town system. This may be an opportunity in the future for the town to allow or require developers to participate in those costs. These are water main repairs over the past year. Based on current GIS data, there are nearly 300,000 linear feet of water lines greater than 6 inches, approximately 1,100 water valves, nearly 500 fire hydrants, and one water pump station with 5 pumps, as well as an elevated storage tank with 1 million gallons of storage for the town. The pump station that supplies domestic drinking water and fire protection to the entire town is located at State Highway 377 and was constructed in 2001. The photos show dry, rotted, cracking components such as pumps, control valves, isolation valves, and air release valves that need replacement due to age and wear, as they are the original components installed with the facility over 23 years ago. A couple of weeks ago, as the mayor had mentioned, an electrical breaker failed during pump startup in the early morning hours while the elevated tank was at its lowest point, resulting in Public Works staff rushing in at 3 a.m. to resolve the issue. The breaker was original to the pump station and controls the power to the pumps. The short circuit also caused the generator at the pump station to fail upon startup and is now in need of replacement. To give you some perspective on the severity of the situation, at the time of the failure, there was approximately 30,000 gallons of stored water in a 1 million gallon tank. And that tank is what serves the entire town. The breaker was replaced last week, and we anticipate bringing a contract for replacement of the generator to council for approval at a future meeting. In May of last year, a power surge on the transformer damaged the component that automatically transfers to secondary power source when the primary source fails. On that occasion, the elevated tank was dangerously low at approximately 10,000 gallons of storage in a 1 million gallon tank. So needless to say, it's been a stressful year for Public Works in terms of water supply, and a historically neglected pump station and lack of maintenance program make it difficult to ensure the integrity of the town system. Similar to a new vehicle just off the lot, you can drive it for thousands and thousands of miles, but you can prolong the life of it if you can change the oil, you can change the filters, and rotate the tires. But eventually, even the tires and those things will have to be replaced. Wastewater. Best practices include televising a minimum of 30% of the system annually and cleaning as needed. Inspections and maintenance of the system could prevent blockages from occurring in the lines and manholes, which cause backups and overflows. Based on current GIS data, there are over 7,200 linear feet of wastewater lines greater than 8 inches, over 800 sanitary sewer manholes, and 4 lift stations with a total of 8 pumps. Public streets and drainage. Public Works is responsible for maintenance and repair of public streets, cleaning obstructed culverts, collapsed pipes, and televising and cleaning public storm drains to ensure capacity of the system, and maintenance and repair of traffic signals, poles, and other various street signage throughout the town is also a Public Works responsibility. Over the past year, Public Works has taken on additional tasks that are generally handled by a Parks Department, including replacing damaged irrigation in the parks, reconstructing a park dam, replacing 3 floating fountains and the waterfall at Glenwick Park, as well as collecting trash from the trash cans along the park's trail system. The photos show neglected bridges in public parks that were in need of repair. Without proper equipment, staff had to rent a forklift to unload and load, as well as transport the wood decking and other materials for that project. Photos on the right are the Dove Road Bridge that was damaged in an auto accident that is planned for replacement later this month. As first responders, Public Works is responsible for winter weather preparation and response. Last year, they rented a skid steer on 2 occasions to load and unload material into the sand spreaders to prepare for potential extreme winter weather. Public Works is also responsible for storm debris collection within the town right-of-way and in the parks. These are photos of the debris removal from the storm that came through. Accomplishments for this past year include reconstruction of public residential streets and the mill and overlay of the entrances to Glenwick Farms, where staff installed reflector buttons at the completion of paving by a contractor. Replacement of the outdated and unsupported SCADA system has been initiated, and the upgrade is anticipated to be deployed in the coming weeks, starting with school zone flashers, then moving on to the lights in the Vaquero Tunnel, the 4 lift stations, and then finally the pump station and the elevated storage tank. The control center for the SCADA system will be housed at the fire department on Dove Road. The SCADA project is a big step in bringing the town's infrastructure up to current standards and allows Public Works to monitor, diagnose, and control components of both the water and sewer systems remotely, which increases efficiencies in providing and maintaining service to our customers. The town received a notice of compliance letter from TCEQ this year for resolving several violations that had not been addressed previously. Kyle worked with the TCEQ and reached out to former consultants over the past year to gather information and submit the proper paperwork to TCEQ to gain their approval. And then the photos on the right are additional parks projects completed by Public Works. Threats. As I mentioned previously, there have been at least 2 instances of failures to the town's water supply in just over 1 year. Other threats include water quality, sanitary sewer overflows, storms, contractor error, and future growth and development. With growth comes opportunities to partner with outside entities who can provide services, revenue, and improvements to the town. Development. There's quite a bit of construction going on in the town right now. The campuses at Circle T Ranch is that conceptual layout in the middle of your slide. It shows a great deal more development potential along State Highway 170 and throughout the town. This is an exciting time for Westlake. With the knowledge of what's to come, this is the time to prepare for potential growth by proactively planning for the future and finding partners to share in those costs, thereby reducing the burden on the existing taxpayers. Master plans are the building blocks for future capital improvement plans and are the first step toward implementing impact fees and other development fees. Modeling of the existing water and wastewater systems will provide staff with a list of prioritized projects with estimated costs that will become the town's capital improvement program. We plan to prioritize the water system and begin working on the redundant water supply for the town. Staff has begun those discussions with consultants regarding the scope of a water master plan, and we plan to initiate coordination with the City of Fort Worth on improvements to the system that will allow Westlake to access the water supply that the town already has rights to. There may also be opportunities to work with Southlake and Keller on redundant water feeds that could benefit all parties. The contract for a water system model and master plan will be on a future agenda for consideration. Other initiatives that we're planning for in the coming year are pump station upgrades and enhancements, water meter program, water quality testing, which is currently contracted out to the city of Roanoke. Additional personnel will allow staff to bring this responsibility back in-house, which will reduce some of the costs to the town. Complete the currently ongoing lead and copper inventory that is due in the middle of October. And then another initiative that's not listed here includes transfer of ownership of the N1 sanitary sewer line to the Trinity River Authority. It's a 15-inch sanitary sewer line that runs through the town. And in preliminary discussions, in order to make that transfer, they need some upgrades that hadn't been done to the line in several years, and they need access to the line. And once the transfer is complete and that access is granted, the town will no longer be responsible for maintenance of that 15-inch line. Critical public works needs. As first responders, public works needs the personnel, tools, and equipment to carry out the responsibility of protecting the life, safety, and welfare of the public, the citizens of the town, the children of Westlake Academy, and the customers of the city that entrusted the town to provide services to the business and corporate campuses that have chosen to be in Westlake. Personnel. Public Works is in immediate need of additional staffing. With the budget, we are requesting 2 field personnel. One would be a water wastewater equipment operator, and the other would be a right-of-way technician to help out with those 200-plus line locates that are requested monthly. The 2 positions will work together with existing staff to perform various water, wastewater, street, and drainage tasks, and they can also monitor and address parks needs. Equipment. Currently, Public Works has 3 pickup trucks that the field personnel drive and a Polaris side-by-side that they use to transport materials. Current staff possess Class A and Class B commercial driver's licenses to be able to operate heavy equipment, but the town does not currently have any equipment to perform those general maintenance functions. We would like to request a vacuum trailer that can be used as a multi-functioning piece of equipment with attachments that would allow it to be utilized for many types of projects. So what the vac trailer would be able to do would help us repair water lines service leaks, remove sediment from valve stacks, clear blocked storm drains and culverts, excavate for sign pole installations, and provide locates for public and franchise utilities. A skid steer would also be helpful for material handling, such as loading and unloading materials, but we can hold off for another year if we're given permission to purchase the vac trailer. And then as part of the vehicle replacement program, we'd like to replace one of the existing pickup trucks with a flatbed truck. The 2015 Ford F-350 pickup truck has over 100,000 miles and should be eligible for replacement due to age and mileage. The flatbed truck would also be utilized to pull the vac trailer. Projects. We know that development is coming, and impact fees are a mechanism for partnering with developers to pay a portion of the cost of expensive infrastructure improvements needed to serve that future growth. Development fees can reduce the burden on the existing taxpayers for much needed infrastructure improvements, and these types of fees are not new to developers, as our neighboring communities have been collecting them for years. As you can see, the list of needs is endless. However, with a couple of additional field staff and some pieces of multifunctional equipment, Public Works can continue to improve the quality of care and service to the town of Westlake. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cheryl. I know in the current budget is we're proposing to address your personnel needs and your equipment needs, but what can we anticipate as far as a timeline to understand our needed pump station upgrades and other capital and the master plan for water, so that we know we can keep up with our development, provide the amount of water that the city requires, the town requires? Do you have a timeline for us so we can understand those requests?
So Kyle and I met with a consultant last week, and one of the things that we had asked them for is to provide us a proposal on the pump station. We need someone to come in and take a look at our pump station, see what's there, see how it runs, and give us a prioritized list of the components of the pump station that need to be replaced immediately. Because without it could be pretty bad. So to staff, that's one of the main priorities.
Just timing.
Timing?
Yes, please.
We are expecting to meet with them the beginning of August and with a proposal before that. We anticipated something that could be approved, at least the assessment of it, probably in the next month or two. And then by the end of the year, we should have some idea of what those components and what those costs would look like. In terms of a water master plan, I'd like to bring that forward to the council for approval before the beginning of the next fiscal year. So in the next coming months, a water model is what is required to be able to build that water master plan. So the model looks at our current system, it looks at where the dead end lines are, it looks at what the pressures are within the system and gives us an idea of, do we need another elevated storage tank? Are we going to need another pump station? Are we, will we be able to maybe just upsize our pump station, or is there another location that we would need another 1 or 2 pump stations in the coming years? And as part of that water master plan, it looks at the comprehensive plan for the entire town, and it plans for that future growth so that we're not building, onesies or twosies little things here and there, not planning for the future. It's going to plan for all of those things. I would anticipate a model and a full master plan could likely take, I'm going to go with 9 months to be conservative, possibly a year.
Thank you.
Cheryl, just wanted to bring up 2 topics. They're obviously not top 10 urgency topics, but it is about drainage in some of our roads. So one area is between the Brown and Sandon House in the Stagecoach neighborhood. There's massive drainage issues, and I know these residents have been digging out that drainage hole almost on the daily during storms. So that's gotten pretty bad. I don't think they've called to mention it yet, but I wanted to bring it up. The other one is on the drainage between Glenwick and Quail Hollow. Multiple residents have said that over the years, as Quail Hollow has developed out and more roads have been paved, the flow of water seems to be larger and larger. At one point, there was a risk of flooding on houses on the Glenwick side. So that typically happens at our biggest storms, typically in May or so. But if you guys keep an eye out on that, I've had residents send me clips and videos and photographs of just the Niagara Falls coming out of that tube. Now, a year ago or 2 years ago when I brought it up, I was told that it was normal, but I just think it'd be nice to check again if that's really normal.
Absolutely. If there are videos and reports that you can forward to us, we can take a look at that and see.
Okay. Yeah, we do. Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl.
Any other questions? Cheryl, thank you. Again, we're very glad you're with us. And Wade, just to say this again, we got to get our arms around our infrastructure and what we need to do. Obviously, we're well on the way. Thank you.
And welcome, Cheryl.
Okay, let's see. So I'm going to make a couple of comments on the consent agenda. There's 2 items on here, H.3 and H.4. Those are very involved things. All we are voting on is to have a public hearing at the next meeting. For the consent agenda, is there any of these that anybody wants to talk about?
Mayor, if I can, staff would like to pull H2, 24-214 from the consent agenda. We'd like to discuss that at a later time.
Okay, I think that's good in light of what's going on with this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Wade, do you want to take a break or do you want to keep going? Want to keep going?
No, sir. Timeline is fine unless you guys need a break.
Okay. Let's keep going. So agenda item I, public hearing. We'll hold a public hearing to discuss and consider adopting an ordinance to approve a specific use permit for a wireless cell tower located 2000 Dove Road, also known as the Tower of Westlake Fire Station, approximately 5.02 acre site. The property is generally located in the northwest intersection of and Dove Road. Helen Eve.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. My name is Helen Eve Beadle. I'm your contracted planner to help facilitate development applications through your period of transition. The first item this evening is the specific use permit, and the application is located at the northwest corner of Davis and Dove Road. It is on the fire station site, identified with the star image. in front of you. So the property's just a little over 5 acres. And the applicant had submitted a site plan for you to consider. The cell tower is on a 25 by 25 lease space, and the accompanying equipment is just to the east of it in a lease space of 50 by 50 square feet. The equipment is screened in an 8-foot masonry structure enclosure with a gated access point that ties into the fire station drive. It's a little bit of a, as I said, the tower is located on the west side. That's my point. On the west side, and then the larger lease space is just to the east. The tower is proposed at 130 feet. I understand the discussions had occurred at one point, and it was 150 feet. So they brought that down 20 feet. And this SUP and the tower would help finish out a lack of coverage in the area. And the 130-foot tower would also have, in addition to that, a 4-foot. So the town council has the ability, this is an elevation of the tower. The town council has the ability to consider development regulations and setbacks in the general government use district. And the property is zoned for government use. And in the first column, I have identified the building setbacks. The second column includes the residential wireless communication facility setbacks. And then the last column illustrates what this SUP application is requesting to accommodate their sites. So the height in the base district is 3 stories or 50 feet. In your communications facilities, you're allowed to have 65 feet. Go up to 80 feet with additional credits based on additional standards. This application is requesting 130 feet and the 4 foot. The front setback in government use is 50 feet. It's not allowed within the front yard setback in communications standards. However, there is a platted setback of 100 feet on this property. And the application is requesting the 100 front yard setback. The rear is 50 feet, and then in the communications facilities regulations, it's allowed in rear yards behind required building setback, which is 50 feet. This application has a 0-foot setback request. The setbacks from residential zoning districts, that is not applicable in government uses. However, in the residential communications facilities regulations, it's 2 feet of setback from a residential zoning district. Traditionally, that zoning district goes down center lines of roadway, and it's for every 2 feet for every 1 feet of wireless facility height. So in this case, that would be a 260-foot setback from residential property. The nearest structure is 285 feet tower. And this last column identifies their request. They're proposing a 166-foot setback from the residential zone. And as I mentioned earlier, the town council has the ability to modify development standards in the government district. The item was the application for the SUP has a number of items in your ordinance for considerations to address the need, effect, interference, aesthetics, compatibility, objectives, and unique reception conditions. And there are conditions that are included in your detailed agenda packet for this item where the applicant has addressed their application requirements. They have outlined and addressed everything that's required. In the development review of the application, there were 8 conditions identified. They're listed in your agenda packet in detail, but in brief summary, they need to add some labels, provide for a permit application with 1 year of approval. There will be lighting restrictions, maintenance requirements, inspections, and no signage allowed in the facility. There are also SUP denial requirements. Those 2 are detailed. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this item on July 9th, and they voted to deny, recommending the application to you all. And their reasoning was that there's lack of citizen support and to explore other options in the area. There were a number of residents that came and spoke in opposition to the item, and generally not supported as an appropriate location. I believe those folks are here this evening and would like to speak. And I believe the applicant is here and would most likely have a presentation for you. I'm available if you have any questions.
Appropriate to bring Mr. Grugan up now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Grugan from Vertical Bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, appreciate the time you've given me to present on behalf of my company. I am with Vertical Bridge. My name is Matt Grugan. I'm a project director with them. I am based in Atlanta, Georgia, actually Canton, Georgia specifically. It's a bedroom community about 40 miles outside of Atlanta. My area of responsibility actually ranges from the Carolinas all the way over to Texas, so I cover the entire Southeast. This application was originally presented on the 9th to the Planning Commission by Ralph Weingartner with Baker Donaldson. Ralph actually had a family emergency. He was supposed to be here today. I think he notified the town about that and asked for it. Since it was already publicized on the agenda, they said that we had to show up, so I came off the bench. Also, I do have Bilal, who is an RF engineer with Verizon. They're actually our client. They're why we considered this ring in the first place. They came to us asking us to seek help to try to find them a permanent solution to help fill this coverage gap. We didn't see any of their propagation maps. It was in the presentation. I don't actually have a clicker for a presentation formally, so maybe we could pull that up if Bilal has to answer any questions regarding the technical aspect of Verizon's coverage. And I think the audience see them, but there might be some representatives from some of our other clients. This is actually a bit of a unique situation in many aspects. Number one, it is a pretty unique tower, right? The design was more than 2 years in the making, and it took a lot of feedback from individuals, not only from the town, from ourselves, the client, to try to design something that matched and went with the town of Westlake. It's one of the most unique cell towers that I've ever built. I've been with Vertical Bridge for 10 years. I've done over 500 of these zonings. I can only count a handful of them that had a pretty unique stealth design like this. So it really speaks to the amount of work that went into trying to get a design that fit in specifically with the fire department. It almost looks like it's made to be part of that with the type of stone and the structure and the lattice and all that stuff that's used in doing so. This tower, just from an economic standpoint, 3 to 4 times what our normal tower does cost to construct. So it's a big event for us and undertaking as well. Another unique situation is normally we build for one client, right? We come into you and ask for approval for us to construct a tower to hold multiple carriers, but at that time, we only have one tenant ready to go on. In this instance, we have 3 tenants. Both AT&T and T-Mobile have showed interest and have shown support as well, and they're going to go on this tower if approved after Verizon. Obviously, be the first. That does council approved a lease to be signed in, I think, January of 2022, which actually got the lease executed back in November of 2022. There are incentives when you get a certain number of tenants on that tower. So I think we automatically hit that incentive right off the bat with 3. Anyway, this situation, I think everybody knows it well. It's right down the street. It's on Dove Road, right at the intersection of Dove and Davis. It's on the fire station property. It's a stealth tower, as staff mentioned. It is 130 feet high. It was originally supposed to be 150 feet. We did make some concessions with our clients to reduce that height. Verizon is going to go at the 120-foot rad, followed by AT&T at 110, and then T-Mobile will go at 100. There is room below that the lease accounts for EMS and town services to place equipment on there if need be. The prop maps, like I spoke to, that are up on the board. The red is what we're trying to achieve. This is the existing Verizon coverage. As you can see along that corridor, you've got green and red, which shows low coverage in that area. As a matter of fact, I drove all over the county prior to coming in here today, and specifically on Dove Road. And when I got off Davis onto Dove, I went from 3 to 2 bars all the way down to 0 to 1, all the way across that corridor. I have T-Mobile. That's who my service provider. So I know that's definitely a need for them. So I'm assuming that other people have the same experience in and around this area. If you could click to the next one, you can actually show what it does when Verizon does show the proposed coverage at the height of 120 feet, as we proposed. So that immediately fills the open space. And after this one, it does show AT&T as well as T-Mobile, and you get the same effects. It is definitely in 3 of those areas. As far as properties, there were no properties really available. The other property that made the most sense was the Fidelity campus that is to the rear of the fire station. Attempts to reach out to them didn't come to fruition. So the most site that made the most sense was the fire station. Obviously, town voted with us as evidence of getting that approval back in January 2022. We entered into a lease and then started on our path here. So it is definitely a need that not only our clients recognized, but also the town as well. As I mentioned before, the tower is going to be designed to kind of blend in with the existing property. All the materials used are used on the fire station. And the structure itself, the 4-sided structure, kind of mirrors some other stuff that you have in the area, more specifically just on the road at Solana and Davis. You've got a tower that is a piece of some of the architecture out there. It would almost bookend both sides of Davis Road. It's a nice complement to it, and I didn't get the exact measurement of that height, but I want to say it's consistent with the height of the tower that we're proposing. So I think that was one of the driving factors in terms of getting us to the height that we ended up at. There are several benefits for this tower. Number one, obviously, the coverage. I've sat through the entire presentations of all the folks before. It seems like a lot of the things that were talked about today are going to be, in some way, things that the cell tower can aid in. You talked about your budget, right? We're going to provide some money to the town that can hopefully be used to some of the projects. Public Works was up here talking about first responders. AT&T, who's going to go on this tower, has a FirstNet network that is specifically for state of emergencies. Issues like 9/11, God forbid, but natural disasters and stuff like that. When communication goes down, their network is up and available to those first responders. Only, so they can get out and communicate and not be bogged down by the other cell users when crisis is needed. And we're considered a utility. the landlines have gone away. Everything is done on your phone. Security, right? The amount of data, it's not just phone calls and texts anymore. Everybody's doing everything from their phone, from streaming. If anybody has kids, you can't get them away from their tablets and phones more than 5 minutes to eat dinner. So everything that they do, all your streaming services are now apps that you can do from that. Home security is from an app on your phone. You can lock your doors from another country, another state, to kind of show your home, turn your lights on, check your cameras, even to the part where wireless internet now coming from the wireless carriers. Everybody knows the song from T-Mobile, right? Wireless internet from T-Mobile. All of that stuff is dependent upon wireless communication that our tower is going to provide. And one other thing, since COVID, work from home has exploded. So I know I do it. My company is based in Boca Raton, Florida. I am a 10-year veteran of this company, and I have never worked a day in that office. I have always worked from home. So internet is vital. The bedroom community that I live in, very similar to Westlake. It is a high-end area. We are very protective of our neighborhoods, but there is advancement in technology that we need to help support the folks that do work from home. I live in a nature preserve. Somebody was mentioning in the beginning ATVs on nature trails. We have 6 miles of nature trails that go around my community. So it's we're very keen on trying to protect our areas and make sure we preserve them. And we understand that infrastructure kind of brings in and the unsightly that some folks say about that is damaging. We worked hard to make this design try to blend in with the natural surroundings. Drive down Davis, it is monopole after monopole after monopole with those antennas just showing. Right, this is significant upgrade from your standard telecommunications site that you see all. It would almost blend in. In addition to that, we have the folks had mentioned from the last meeting. There was comments about property values, right? The addition of cell towers into a neighborhood decreases property values and home values. And we actually have a third-party report underway. I'd like to submit into the record a copy of a report that we've done for another cell tower because the one that we're doing for this property hasn't been done yet. July 9th was the last meeting, right? So we got that information. We tried to get it done as quick as possible. It will be done, and we'd like to replace it once we do have it to show you. But in every property appraisal report that we've done by a third party, it has showed that the property values don't go down. In every case, they've gone up because now new home buyers, when they're out there and they're looking, that work from home is important, right? You depend on your phone, right?
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm Anna White. I have heard your presentations now through 3 administrations on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I live on the west side of town. I have T-Mobile, and I have crappy cell service. So I want to just speak to you as a resident who now has sat on council for 3 administrations, and I have to be completely transparent. I'm disappointed in your presentation today. Okay. It's very clear that your clients are Verizon and the other cell carriers, but your clients are not the residents of Westlake. And the 2 main reasons why I say this is because I asked you last year to go back and answer 2 questions for me. 1, would this cell tower actually solve our problems? And 2, what were the other options that we have? Now, you and I both know there are other options that could serve the residents in Westlake and solve our cell service issues. You also know that your topography pictures are misleading because there are several areas in town that are lower in topography that would not benefit from this tower. And you also know, because we talked extensively about this last year, that a lot of the building materials in Vicara are very high quality, and it's very questionable whether even a cell tower within range would provide cell service in the houses. And last but not least, my neighborhood would not be reached by this cell tower. So there are lots of other options that would better serve our community. And I really don't want to be patronized about how pretty this tower looks. You can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. So I feel like over the last 3 years, you've been trying to stuff this idea down our throats. And I'm really disappointed that you didn't answer the questions we asked last year.
Sure. I appreciate your comments, and I do realize that the city, the town of Westlake residents are not my clients; they are my clients' clients, and that's why we're here, right? I mean, we're trying to provide a service for them. I think you're saying that a few things. Number one, are there alternative solutions? I think if there were alternative solutions to successfully cover this area, they would have been presented.
I disagree.
Okay, then we can agree to disagree. But the reason we've been here let's just go back. I mean, January 2022.
Again, you didn't answer our questions, so that's unfortunate.
Mr. Grugan, just for the...
Yep. But anyway, I would say if there were alternative solutions, we would be here with an alternative. My clients would be forcing that, right? I mean, technology doesn't wait. We won't be
I disagree, so let's move on from that topic.
Okay. All right, we can do that. Anyway, I would like to submit the property report, the appraisal report, as a piece of evidence for the record. I also have the Telecommunications Act of 1996. I do want to submit this. This is a cornerstone of our industry, right? It's a document that we base a lot of our just how we operate on. It also does help support and give reasons for some of the ways that municipalities and jurisdictions can operate and can vote. There are things that the federal government controls, FCC, right? Emissions, RF emissions. I know a lot of people have concerns about health and stuff like that. FCC governs that, right? There are allowable rates that they can operate within. That they cannot go above. So there is the FCC that does control that, as well as other environmental companies that we have to go through to even get to this point, right? All these reports that we have to do to make sure that property is...
Pardon me for a minute. It is the mayor's prerogative to limit time, but we're going to hear from our community here in a minute. Sure. I'll throw you a bone coming off the bench. Actually, I feel like you did a reasonable job of representing your position, so I want to throw you a little bone there, but... Yeah. At the end of the day, we represent our members of our community, so we'll hear from them
100%.
Shortly.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Grugan, we appreciate your time, and to Councilman White, we know I was sitting in the audience, 3 administrations ago when we started talking about this, and it's actually one of the reasons I ran for council. I didn't like the questions were being asked by guys from council at the time, and we apologize it's gone through, but we do appreciate your time.
Sure, absolutely. May I be, who would I give these documents?
Diana Buchanan. I want to now open up a public hearing regarding the specific use permit request for a wireless cell tower at 2000 Dove Road. Is there anyone that would like to speak? I know Pam, I know Gail spoke earlier.
Hi, thank you. My name is Anna Eisen. I reside at 1905 Gaillardia Court. I was asked to come here tonight by some of the fellow Gaillardian court people who all have different cell service and have 5 bars and have no complaints. They asked me to come and also thank the P&Z. I spoke at the hearing for their diligence and their decision to decline the application for the cell tower. During the hearing, some of the people on P&Z actually called it a monstrosity. As someone who lives the closest to the tower, I can tell you that I did some research, and 130 feet may sound like a reduction, but it's almost the same equivalent of 5 high school goalposts stacked one on top of the other. It's approximately the same height as the Statue of Liberty without the base, and also the same size as the SpaceX Starship without the booster. So when you think about having that in your backyard, it really is a monstrosity. Susan Matthews, who's a professional realtor, gave a presentation, and the American Realtor Association says home values will drop approximately 9.6%, and more recent studies that Susan presented are up to 20%. So at 10% just on my cul-de-sac, it's almost a $2 million loss in home values, and there are 4 cul-de-sacs that back up to Dove Road. One of the other points that was brought up at P&Z, even though Vertical Bridge was not able to contact or make, an arrangement with Fidelity, is that you as our city leaders probably have a better relationship and can maybe talk to them and find out that there are other options. And the last thing to bring up is that there are safety concerns. American Cancer Society has not proven that it is safe, even though there is not direct evidence yet. In Europe, there are studies that show gliomas and other kind of effects on male and female fertility, embryos, and it's still very early to know. I know that the IAFF, the International Association of Firefighters, has made a public statement that they oppose co-location until there is evidence that these towers, which have chronic low-level exposure, are safe. So I just am representing my cul-de-sac. Thank you. And I hope that you will also oppose this and look for better solutions, like you did with our firehouse that is really beautiful and fits in the community. And I think this tower would not complement that design. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? We'll close the public comments. Council, Wade, help me. We have an opportunity to approve with changes, table, or deny.
That's correct.
Correct. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny.
Second.
Then a motion to deny and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It's denied. We just voted, so I mean, there's. How about 2 minutes?
Yes, my name is Bilal Altaf, and I'm the senior RF engineer for Verizon. I have Tarrant and Parker counties, and I take care of DFW Airport design, AT&T Stadium for FIFA World Cup. So to answer your questions about another solutions, we have small cell solutions, but we cannot deploy those here because of the center line. And we are here operating on 700 frequency, which is a lower frequency that can travel further. And on small cells, we only go with the mid band, which is higher frequency. So we cannot go with small cells in this area, provide our customers with the 4G LTE. And also from one of the other from public persons were saying, about cancer. We go through an EME study that is in compliance within our regulatory team. So they approve that, and then we have that in our design. So before, it would not cause any cancer issues. And obviously through the FCC regulations, everything is approved. Nothing is illegal. We have our regulatory team, they approve it, run the studies, and we already have it approved on this one. And, from the antenna perspective, they'll be stealthing, so it will match with the building. So no one will be able to see the antenna. All we need is just high 120, 30 rad centers, so we can cover the area with the network. And now we are also going with the 5G. With the 5G, you guys can use internet from your homes. You go to the Verizon Wireless, get a internet box and put it at home. And, it can be really, especially in the emergency. Here, I'm not speaking on behalf of T-Mobile, but for Verizon, there's a coverage gap there. And I use the same ATOL software that I use for DFW Airport, for AT&T Stadium. And this has been, I'm using that for the FIFA World Cup that is coming in 2026. So it's, it's a nationwide, global-wise tool that we use and make sure that, we come up with the right solutions. So.
And I appreciate your comments. I think as a town, we would really like to be thought partners and looking at all the options and looking at all the issues that we have.
Sure.
These are multi-layered issues, multiple pronged problems from technology to topography to building materials in the region we have. So I think these are all great comments, but I'd like to have that as we move forward to look for a solution that works for everyone.
Sure. And I did look into, sorry I was not here at the last year meeting. One of our principal engineers were here. So we did look at our small cell solutions, but the only reason we could not go with them because of the area that we are trying to cover. And we can only achieve that with the higher rad center. And those small cells are operated at a high band frequency, which travels much less as compared to lower band. which travels further. So that's why we were wanted to go with the higher ed center. It's really going to help
Sure.
everyone.
We'll talk more about this moving forward.
Sure.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time, and look, I know you guys put a lot of effort in. Again, this has gone over 3 administrations. Appreciate it. There's been a vote and denied it.
Okay.
We appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Now let's take. You guys want to take a break? 5 minutes. Want a break? I love these troopers. We're going to go. Okay, agenda item I2, hold a public hearing, consider the approval of resolution 24-45, approving a final plat for Deloitte University Conference Centers 1A. Melanie.
Thank you. Good evening once again. So this next item is the Deloitte University Conference Center final plat. It is approximately 225 acres and consists of 2 lots to facilitate their development. The final plat is the last step in the platting process. It is a ministerial function. If it meets the requirements, it should be approved. I think council will remember that the zoning concept plan and site plans have all been approved and construction has been underway. They're nearing completion and will soon have their public works inspection. It does meet all of the zoning and subdivision regulations. Town staff recommends approval as presented, and the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended the item at their July 9th meeting. And I believe the applicant's engineers are here if you should have any questions for them.
You know, I wouldn't mind hearing just a minute from Deloitte. We don't get to hear from them often, and since you get to represent Deloitte for a minute and just say something nice and take the microphone. Just give us your thoughts in a minute if you could.
Yeah, we love Deloitte here.
We're grateful that you're here. We certainly don't want you to waste the trip.
Yeah, there you go. Well said.
I'm Pat Cook. This is the last piece of legislation that we need from the town. We have our engineers here. I'm just representing actually Deloitte, and we appreciate you guys' support. If there's any questions we need to answer, we certainly do it.
My understanding is that you bring teams in from across the country now with this expansion for both leadership and financial training. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. Okay. It's actually global. It's a global company. We have folks coming from all over to come to that place. There's, I don't know how much of it, I'm kind of new to them, so I don't know how much of it's proprietary, but there's 800 folks there, most days from all over, literally all over.
Any questions? Well, we appreciate Deloitte, their business being in Westlake.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Mayor, you have a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we needed a break. I'd like to open this up for a public hearing. Any comments from the public? Close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I will motion.
And a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
And second.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank y'all. Okay, regular agenda items. Y'all been really patient. Discuss, consider, and act to award a contract for strategic planning and services for the town of Westlake and Westlake Academy to Baker Tilly and authorize the town manager to execute required documentation to begin scheduling strategic planning sessions. Mr. Carroll.
Mayor and council, thank you. We're very excited to finally get this before the council. We've been needing to go through a strategic management exercise for our future for quite some time. We went out to bid for several different companies, got some proposals back from several different companies. Baker Tilly has come back with the most robust plan, and therefore the town staff has suggested that we move forward with them. We had a previous conversation with council, going through portions of their scope of work. Tonight we have Carol Jacobs, Managing Director of Baker Tilly, and several of her team members here to discuss that and answer any questions that we might have so that we can move forward with our strategic planning. Ms. Jacobs, would you like to come forward? Again, thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you.
They flew in from California. We actually had someone that almost missed her flight. And, had a little trouble. We thought we were going to have to Zoom her in, but she made it. So
I'm glad we're having California-like weather for you.
Yeah, it's not exactly, but it's close. It's close.
I tried.
It is absolutely our pleasure to be here this evening, and I never bet on council time, so I knew we were going to be here for a while. But we have put together a proposal for you that will really complete all of your planning documents kind of into one, so that you can move forward as a community and cover all of your bases. You have a financial document, you have a comprehensive plan. But what we hope to do for you is to put all these things together for you so that you have a plan for the next 3 to 5 years. I want to introduce to you really quickly my colleague Jay Staley, who is our school expert. He works with K through 12 schools throughout the country, and he is really going to focus his attention in our fiscal model and our fiscal sustainability model on the finances of the school and how we can best make sure that that is fully funded in the future. And Marta Purdy is our economic development person, and so they're not going to speak right now, but if you have questions for them, they will be happy to do that. We'll tell you a little bit about our approach. We'll give you some timeline, and then I want to give you enough time to answer questions because, Mr. Mayor, I understand you want to take a break, and I want to make sure that we can do that quickly. Here's the team. I am the engagement manager, which basically means that by the end of this project, if you're not happy, you need to come to me, and I will make sure that you are happy by the time I walk out the door. Well, also not with us today is Steve Toller, who is a former finance director in cities in California, and Jacqueline McRae, who is a former community development person, and she will be leading our strategic planning process. She's done probably 40 strategic planning processes across the country in her career. The other thing that makes Baker Tilly special is the team that we put together. Everybody that you see on this list has been a local government professional. We have had careers. We are all in our second careers or third careers for me. And we make sure we understand how government works. We understand your finances. We understand your community development, your planning and your zoning. We understand fire and police. We understand that because we've lived it and been there. And so when we come together to put together a strategic plan, we know the questions to ask because we've been on that side of the fence. Here's what we understand you need. And I'm really happy to be here because you guys are not in a bad place. You're in a really good place. Normally we come in and people are looking at bankruptcy and they're like, oh my gosh, what do we do now? And to have this kind of forward-thinking approach where, no, we're in a really good spot now, but let's make sure we can continue that and move forward. Past election cycles and all that other things that you all have to deal with. We want to make sure that we have plans in place so that when future councils come in, the town manager can go, oh, look, here's our plans. This is what we're doing. And they'll go, oh, okay, that sounds great. And then you can hopefully move the community forward. So what we're going to do for you is we're going to look at your financial condition. I could not have been here on a better night. I heard your budget presentation. I heard the concerns about the academy and legislation. And so really getting a flavor for some of the issues that you're dealing with. And we'll dig deep into those as we come in on site. You're going to have a multi-level strategy, a 5-year plan. You don't worry about what just happens tomorrow. You need to worry about the decisions that you make today or don't make today, like put it in a cell tower, right? How does that impact the community 5 years from now, 50 years from now? And so between the financial planning and the strategic planning and the economic development planning, we'll have an entire package for you that will really move this community even more forward-thinking than you already are. Here's how we do this. I was a former finance director, so I believe everything starts with finances. Either you're poor or you're not, or you're somewhere in the middle. And if you don't understand the impacts that financial decisions have on you, not just today, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're not making a completely informed decision. And so what we're going to do for you is two things. One, we're going to prepare a fiscal model, which is going to look at all of your revenues, all of your expenditures, all of the options for those revenues and expenditures, and really understand them. And then what we do is we do a fiscal sustainability plan. I tended to go all over the place so that we're not really following the slides yet. The fiscal sustainability plan will give you options. Oh, legislation changes at the school and you're not going to get as much money per pupil. What do we do now? We can build those into a sustainability model, those decision-making points where you can kind of play with it. And this is a tools that your finance director will have as things change. You can put in different scenarios and see what the impact is going to be, not only on the school, but on the other services that you provide to the community. I just explained what this is, so you don't need to hear it again. A large part of the plan is really the SWOT analysis for your schools. I was really happy to hear about House School. I had an opportunity to drive up there. Oh my gosh, what a magnificent campus it is. It's so pretty. I suspect the education is just as beautiful. But what we need to find out is what happens if enrollment changes? What happens if legislation changes? What happens if you go from 2,000 people to 7,000 people, and they all have students who all want to go to this community, and is there to your school, and is there another place for kids to go? You guys have like public schools in town? In 3 different school districts. Okay. You are very. We want to learn all about that. And again, part of the fiscal modeling and sustainability program is really going to have a big chunk of that is going to be done by Jay and his team about the school and all of those levers that need to be pulled depending on what happens with the schools, with the legislation, and with the town budget. And here's how we do that. This is how we start every project. We start the project, we'll have a kickoff meeting with the town manager and whoever he deems is appropriate, depending on which part of the plan we're doing. We spend a lot of time understanding you, gathering information and documents. We also understand you are a very small staff, and we don't want to gobble up all their time because they're already busy. So we try to minimize that with big data requests, and we'll say, give us 3 weeks and get us the stuff back to us. Then we're going to conduct the fiscal gap analysis. Where are your gaps? Where are the things that could go wrong? And then we're going to develop a baseline model. So this is where you start. Depending on what you do is depending on how your finances go. And then we'll provide that information to you. We'll come back and do a presentation to you. We'll be in constant contact with your new finance director. We're going to get to become really good friends. She's going to be key in this, as well as your finance committee of the council. We'll want you involved in this to make sure that you understand what we're doing. I understand we've got some high-powered finance professionals here on this dais, so we want to make sure that you're on board with what we're doing and the assumptions and all of the assumptions that we make. That fiscal sustainability plan is going to take us from the fiscal model to long-term planning. What happens in the next 10 years? What happens depending on what happens with legislation and other things that may be going on in the town? You have a lot of public works needs. You have a lot of capital needs. How does that play into providing services for the community? If you have to replace a water treatment plant or a sewage treatment plant, or you have to replace these big lines, what impact is that going to have on you long term? You do it, and if you don't do it, right? Because maintaining infrastructure is key. You can pay me $1 today to maintain something. You can pay me $1,000, 5 years from now. So maintaining that infrastructure, again, is going to be a key component of this sustainability plan. Again, we'll present that to you. You will know all of the assumptions that we made. You say, that will never happen here in a million years. We would say, okay, and we can change those assumptions. And your finance director, once she has these tools in her hand, she will be able to use these tools moving forward into the future. So you don't have to pay us every time to come back and do it. We'd be happy to do that for you if she doesn't have time, but don't have to. And then we're going to do, at the same time we're doing the fiscal analysis work, we're also going to be doing a strategic plan. I did notice that you pulled an item for a community survey. If you decide to go back out and do that, why pay for it twice, right? It would be good if we could have that information and use that within the strategic planning process.
Quick question. We actually had that discussion, and surveys are important to us. We have a history of doing a trend, but we can adjust the survey y'all do a little bit to get some things in there for trend lines and things.
Yeah, that would be, yes, that Perfect. Would be great. So we can Ours is not statistically valid, so if you need a statistically valid one, you might have to do it separate. We'll talk about that. We can talk about that, though. Okay. Yeah. We can let's do one survey and not two surveys and ask people to answer the same questions.
Yeah, there's no Bayesian theorems here, okay?
So I love to do strategic plans because between council, staff, and the community, things come up that you don't get to individually. But as a group, when you're working as a group together, those ideas that come up, you think the community thinks another way, and we get into a community meeting and they go, oh, we don't care about that at all, but what we really want is this. And so we gather all this input from the staff, from you. We'll have individual meetings with you. We will have several community meetings. We'll have several community meetings with parents and administrators at the school. We need to get both groups in there. And we will put together a strategic plan that will outline goals, strategies, and implementation of those goals and strategies. And at the end of it, what is been really beneficial to many of our clients is what we call an implementation action plan. For every goal and every strategy, we provide your town manager with a document that says, this is goal 1, this is strategy 1, get a new pump station. Wade will put on there, that needs to be done by this date, and this is the person responsible. And it becomes a mechanism for him to report back to you on the progress of the strategic plan. There is no point in doing all of this work if you're not going to use the document, if you're not going to use it.
Amen.
And if it's going to sit on a shelf, I haven't done my job. And so if you think this is going to sit on a shelf, we need to have a discussion about that. I do not want that. Economic development services, Mark and I were talking for like 3 minutes beforehand, and you've got this amazing kind of unusual land use, right? You've got all these beautiful buildings. I came here yesterday and walked around, and I walked through the campus, and it's a beautiful campus, and you get 16,000 people coming in and 16,000 people leaving, and you got like 2,000 hanging around and living here, right? Very unusual. But we can take that and we can look at what's important from a land use perspective and an economic development perspective. How do you get those companies in here? And how do we implement that plan for you? And so Marta and her team will put together a plan for you that will be fiscally responsible, that will align with your strategic goals, and that will provide you and the community with the services and the economy that you want here in Westlake, which could be very different from what your neighbors want. So we want to make sure that we understand you. Yes, sir.
Yes, just for a point of clarity, we're hoping to understand, over the next 10 years, what we need to generate in terms of property tax, sales tax. There's going to be diminishing permit fees as we slow down. A, can we expect that? And B, we're really proud of and have the benefit of a AAA bond rating. Will you be able to inform us how to maintain that credit rate?
Absolutely. That will all be in the fiscal modeling and the sustainability program. Okay?
Carol, one more question before you move forward. We're talking about, a lot of the stakeholder meetings that you're going to have. I want to make sure that we also include a lot of our commercial stakeholders. We got some large campuses here that we want to make sure that our
Chamber of Commerce.
Part of that. That's correct.
Absolutely.
Chamber of Commerce, but also our Deloittes and Fidelities and Schwab. We want to make sure that we understand as a municipality what their needs are as well as our citizens' needs. Because we have some developers that might misinterpret those, and we just want to make sure that we're on track with what that is.
We can absolutely have large business. We can do a focus group with kind of your key players in town.
Outstanding. Thank you.
That's great.
Because they are a key component. I don't know what the pandemic's done to your office space, but in some places it's been kind of devastating.
We're actually, our tenants are getting back to it. Slowly, like everybody nationally. It's unbelievable it's taken this long, but they're getting more.
Good, that's good. And these are the steps for your economic development plan. We need to see where you are, what you have, what your mix of businesses is now. And that will be your baseline, and then from there, we're going to analyze your policies and your procedures and what it is you want in the town, what does your comprehensive plan say, what does your land use say, and then look at, are there gaps? Do you need more restaurants? Do you need more hotels? You've got Deloitte and they're bringing people from all over the country. Well, you sure want them staying in town, right? You don't want them across the freeway where I am. I apologize. That won't happen again.
Oh, man.
I'll be on this side of town next time. I know. Please give me the job. I promise I'll come back to the Marriott.